Good morning, everyone. It is October 5th, 2019, and we are going to test the 1990 again, but we're going to compare it to a very different type of headphone. Not a Beyerdynamic, but a very small company called Ollo Audio. Now, I've already done the Ollo Audio S4R, a closed-back version of their headphones, and I've given that fantastic marks. It's a fantastic headphone, especially for the price. And now it's time for the open back. Now, I haven't done a sound test of the open back by itself yet. That's going to happen sometime in the future. Since we're on the 1990, since that's, quote unquote, open back, it's semi-open. Let's go ahead and try it with the Ollo Audio. There's a number of reasons why I think this test will be important to some people. Excuse me while I have coffee, because it's been a long day so far. The reason that it's important is because Beyerdynamic says the 1990 is for mixing and mastering, and okay, well, we'll have to take a look at whether or not that's a true statement. Ollo Audio also says that their headphones are for mixing and mastering. One of the ways you can actually tell whether a headphone can do what the company proclaims that it can do is by looking at the frequency response chart. That's where I would go first. And so if we go to the Ollo Audio website, this is, when you go into the headphone section, this is what you see. You see their frequency response chart. It's up front, directly in front of you. The red designates the S4, the open back, and the black is the closed back. And with both headphones, whenever you order one of these headphones, they're handmade and then they're shipped. With the headphones comes the actual frequency response chart for that particular headphone. And for both of these headphones, I have to say, when I got them, it was very, very close to what Ollo Audio markets on their website. It's never going to be exactly the same because that's their testing parameter, that's their goal, and every headphone, especially if it's handmade, is going to have a little bit of variance for one reason or another. However, both of their headphones have come with a frequency response chart that was exceptionally close to what they advertise on their website, meaning incredibly flat. This is as flat and as neutral as you can possibly get for this price. And what is the price? Well, the S4 and the S4R sell for about $318 US, which is why I had this open first. It's actually 290 euro, which translates to $318 American, and the American dollar is getting its ass kicked. And so for $318, you get an incredibly flat response rate. Compared to the 1990, which is $600, double the price, and its frequency chart is non-existent. Beyerdynamic doesn't provide it. When you scroll down, they show you all these waves. Well, funny enough, that's fairly accurate to what the frequency response chart is for the 1990. I have found several frequency response charts from various individuals, and their frequency testing parameters vary, but the response chart seems fairly close to what you're seeing here. I don't see a whole lot of deviation from this chart that you see. The red and the black, or the red and the blue, designate left and right channel, so I wouldn't worry about that. But you can see that this is not neutral. This is by no sense of the imagination a flat headphone. And so when you compare this to the Ollo Audio, you can see a drastic difference between the two, at least on paper. Now let's see if that translates to a real difference in actual testing. So today's test is going to be with the bass. And we have our test playlist. We have 3 songs we're going to use. I'm going to change up the songs because somebody asked me to. We're going to listen to Pure Water by Mustard Amigos, Drum Solo by Jack Bruce and Simon Phillips, and Bubbles by Yoshi Horikawa. We have the usual test parameters, A and B. A is going to be the Ollo, B is going to be the 1990, plugged into a switch, which is itself plugged into the RME ADI2 DAC. We're going to start both headphones at equal volume, which would be negative 30 decibels. Now, before I start, I got to say, the Ollo Audio is a 32 ohm headphone, so negative 30 is going to be fairly loud. Let's get on with it. Let's start with Pure Water. Here we go. I have the Ollo Audio on my head. And as I said, negative 30 is fairly loud because it's only a 32 ohm headphone. That bass is very, very tight. No loose sound at all. It's very fast transients. Bass hits and moves on. It's not emphasized. I can clearly hear the vocals. No doubt that the bass is definitely not interacting with their vocals. Now the bass, it sounds a little light, and part of the reason is that there's a slight dip into the bass region, the sub bass, so it's not particularly emphasized. But you do get a tight bass response. What is there is in fact well controlled. I'll increase the volume to -25. And as we increase the volume, the bass doesn't come up and start interfering. It remains about the same character, just increases in volume along with the rest of the mix. And this volume is fairly loud. I can't hear myself talk. Absolutely crystal clear vocal. No distortion whatsoever from the bass. No peakiness, no harshness. This is not a hep thumping bass. It's neutral, a little underemphasized, I would say, in the bass region or the sub bass region. But that's not a detriment if what you want to do is listen to the mix in totality. Very good presentation, clear, undistorted, no peakiness, very, very neutral, especially for the price. Like I said, $300. Let's switch to the 1990. All right, I've got the 1990 on my head, and one thing I will point out is that whereas the Ollo audio for one reason or another sounds a bit more closed off, there's more sound isolation, the DT 1990 in comparison sounds much more open, so there's less sound isolation from the outside in, even though both are open back headphones. One of the reasons I would say is that the Ollo has slightly more clamping force than the 1990, and the Ollo's ear pads they sit almost right on top of my ears, whereas the Beyerdynamic sit around my ears. So the Beyerdynamic barely touch my earlobes, whereas the Ollo audio is basically sitting on top of my earlobes. All right, that being said, let's start -30 decibels. Here we go. Yeah, again, it's just a fairly low volume, so I'm going to increase the volume. We're -20. And at -20, I can already start hearing some of that treble energy that wasn't present on the Ollo. It's not harsh, but it's a lot of energy, even at -20 decibels. The bass is not as tight as I would say it is on the Ollo, just a little bit loose. It does have just a slight bit of distortion as the vocals come in. I can hear the vocals, I can hear the bass, but it's not as clearly separate as it is on the Ollo. I'm going to increase the volume again to -15. At -15, I can't hear myself talk. I would say the bass is tight on the 1990, but there's a slightly longer reverberation with the bass on the 1990 than there was on the Ollo. Almost, it's just very slight, not a huge difference. As far as the vocal is concerned, I think that the vocal is not quite as clear as on the Ollo. The Ollo seems to have slightly clearer mids and slightly better separation of the vocalist. So there's a primary and the backup vocalist. And the 1990 doesn't have a hard light separation as good as the Ollo does. So let's stop and let's go back real quick and let's listen to that vocal, the backup vocalist. Yeah, it's just not quite as clear as it is on the Ollo. I would say the Ollo has slightly better clarity with the two vocalists. When they're singing together, I can definitely hear the two tonalities of the 1990. It's just that with the Ollo, there's a bit better separation of their tonalities. Part of that comes with, the fact that the Ollo seems to have a less emphasized sub bass, whereas the 1990 has slightly more emphasized sub bass, and you start melding the frequencies, and it's just not quite as clear. It's just a slight difference. All right, let's switch back to the Ollo. All right, we got the Ollo audio on my head. And let's skip forward to the drum solo by Jack Bruce and Simon Phillips. Let's take this down to negative 30 decibels. And here we go. The drums seem to sound fairly fast decay. I'm going to increase the volume to negative 20. Very, very fast decay at the drums. You can hear each and every drum strike. I'm going to increase the volume again to negative 15. No harshness, no peakiness at all. Still, you can feel that energy with the cymbals. You can feel that energy with the S4 as each drum head is struck. But it's not peaky, it's not harsh. Very fast decay. I can hear each and every single drum head that is hit. Let's stop. Let's go back to the beginning. What I want to hear is if I can tell if it sounds like the drum is falling out, like the bottom of the drum is falling out at the beginning of the song. When the drum is hit, the air pressure is pushed down, and you get this kind of feeling that the drum is falling out of itself, right? Like a boing, boing, that sort of sound. Let's see if the S4 can reproduce that. Here we go. Starting at 5 seconds. It does, not to a great extent. I mean, it doesn't sound like boing. It's much more muted. I can sense that it's there. I can hear that detail could be present. It's just not presenting it all the way. So it doesn't sound like boing, boing. It's more like boing, boing. Right? Do you hear the difference? Boing, boing, and boing. This is really silly. I know. The difference in tonality is slight, but if you know what you're looking for, if you've ever heard it, then you will, I think, fairly easily find that the S4 doesn't have it. It's not a huge difference. You can feel it. Some of it is there, just not all of it. Okay, so let's go back to the 1990. All right, switch to the 1990. Let's restart the song. Here we go. The volume, I'm going to increase to negative 15. Strangely enough, I also don't hear the bottom falling out of the drum with the 1990. The drum strikes are not as fast on the 1990. I think there's a slightly longer delay in how the frequency dies off with each drum strike. Not a huge difference, but noticeable in my opinion. I'm going to increase the volume again to negative 10. Now, when the drum strikes do occur, the 1990 seems to have a little bit more muffled nature to it. Almost like there's a bedsheet or something over each drum head when the drummer is playing. The treble region still has plenty of energy, but again, it's a little muffled, weird signature in comparison. I can hear each individual drum head being hit. but the decay of it is a little longer, so it starts melding. So let's go back and let's listen for the drum dropping out. That sound of effect, negative 10 decibels. Here we go. Yeah, I really don't even hear it on the 1990. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play it, then switch to the Ollo, listen for it again. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to switch to the Ollo. Okay, I got the Ollo. Yeah, no, the Ollo definitely has that detail, whereas the 1990, it's more muffled. I can't even hear it. Where the Ollo really does reproduce it better than the 1990. Now, as I said at the beginning of the song, the boing boing sound is more muted on the Ollo than I've heard it with more analytical headphones, right? Headphones that have a bit more clarity to them. Whereas the sound really should be boing boing. The Ollo does boing boing. It's such a slight difference in tonality, but if you know what you're looking for, you'll find it. Whereas with the 1990, even at high volume at negative 10, I can't hear it. And negative 10 is where I can't hear myself talk with the music playing. So if I can't hear it at that high volume, I don't know how much louder I want to take it in order to be able to hear it. And that's kind of a question, right? If you can't hear that detail at a very high volume, then why would you want to take it up even higher beyond your comfort level just to try to find that detail? If the headphone requires you to do that, then I don't think the headphone really is doing what it should be. It's not doing what you expect it to. It's not providing the detail that you were promised, because if you're pushing the driver that hard, then maybe the driver simply isn't capable of reproducing that sound at comfortable listening volume. That's just my opinion. So for this song, I would say that the Ollo is indeed slightly clearer. The decay of the drum head is faster. I can hear, I could hear the drums fairly clear on the 1990, but there's just a slight lingering to their frequency as the drum head is hit, and so there's just a slight bit more of a muffled effect compared to the Ollo. And on top of that, I can't hear that little micro detail of the drum falling out on the 1990, where on the Ollo it does produce it. It's just not absolutely produced. It's not completely clear. But there's where the Ollo does have it, the 1990, I simply can't get it. Okay, so let's go to Bubbles by Yoshi Horikawa. Now, look, before we go to Yoshi, I want to point this out. Joshua Velour has spoken about Yoshi Horikawa many times. I'm not a particular big fan of Yoshi. I don't think that this person's songs are all that helpful. There's just way too much going on. It's a little too complicated to really break down the song. But somebody asked that I put one of their songs on the playlist, so it's on the playlist, and we're going to try it out. I have the Ollo, and I'm going to decrease the volume to negative 30. And here we go. So at the very beginning of the song, you hear almost like a rubber ball bouncing on concrete. And things just dropping on the floor. You can hear multiple things falling now, like marbles and plastic little bits and pieces. And there's this kind of this rubbery, bouncy ball thing. Now there's, I guess, a bass instrument that comes in. It's just such a weird song. So I can hear all the individual little balls, plastic pieces falling in the background. I could hear a bass instrument in the middle. And then there's some sort of percussion. I think it's a percussion instrument or something that's also playing. It's weird. I'm going to skip ahead. Okay. All right, so I'm not quite sure what I can do with this song. This is such a... Yossi is insane. What I'm going to do instead is compare for detail on this. There is a bit of a bassness to it, obviously, with the balls dropping, with the rubber ball bouncing up and down, and then all the other little plastic balls falling. Ollo reproduces it. I can hear multiple balls dropping. I can hear multiple balls dropping. I can hear the rubber ball. I can hear the bass instrument. And so it comes out fairly clear. Let's switch to the 1990 and let's see how the 1990 reproduces all that. Okay, I've got the 1990 on my head, and we're going to volume's at -30. Here we go. See, the weird thing is, with the 1990, that rubber bound ball at the beginning sounds more like steel. Like somebody's hitting a steel canister with a wooden stick. That just doesn't sound right. I'm going to restart that. Yeah, that does not sound like a rubber ball. I would not have said it was a rubber ball if I hadn't heard the Ollo first. I'm going to increase the volume to -20. So I hear multiple balls dropping. I can hear the bass and the percussion instrument. It sounds slightly more muffled on the 1990 than on the Ollo. Especially that percussion part, it just sounds a bit too muffled compared to the Ollo, where the Ollo has slightly better clarity to it. It's not a night and day difference, but if we do an A and B test, you can tell that the Ollo is just a little bit cleaner in reproducing those dropping of the balls, the bass instrument, the percussion, better separation than on the 1990. There's a lot going on in this song, and with the 1990, it just sounds confused. There's so much stuff, so much little detail that's just kind of thrown into a big pot, and you're not quite sure what to listen to. Okay, so I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go back a couple of seconds. I'm going to switch to the Ollo and try to figure out if there is, in fact, a difference. Okay, I've got the Ollo, and let's go. I brought the volume down to -28, which is about the same as -20 on the 1990. Yeah, there seems to be just a little more clarity on the Ollo than on the 1990. I can hear each individual ball still dropping, whereas on the 1990, it was much more muffled with the balls dropping. So let's go back a couple seconds, listen for the balls dropping again, and then I'll switch to the 1990. We're starting at 1 minute 50 seconds. Yeah, I hear it. I heard that it was a plastic ball that fell, and then it bounced a couple of times, and it just kind of dies off. Switching to 1990. All right, 1990, I'm going to increase the volume to -20 so that we're about equal volume here. And let's start. Yeah, it's definitely more muffled on the 1990 than it is on the Ollo. The Ollo, I could immediately hear it. It was just like that. I heard it. As soon as that ball hits the ground the first time, I hear it. It's crystal clear. Whereas on the 1990, it hits, and I'm like, okay, it happened. Then it bounces again. It's like, there it is. It's not as clear on the 1990. it just doesn't come out as obviously as it does on the Ollo. Once you hear it, like, okay, so there is a ball. But on the Ollo, it's just immediately. There's no lingering effect. There's no muffled nature to it. Whereas with the 1990, there is, in fact, a little bit of muffling involved. Okay, so let's talk about conclusions. Now, here's the thing. I am a huge fan of Ollo audio. I don't think that should come as a surprise if you've ever watched my other videos about the S4R, the closeback. I think that Ollo has done a really excellent job in making an unobtrusive headphone in the S4R in the closeback. The open back so far, my very first listen with them in a comparison, I can tell you that they, at the very least, at the very bare minimum, keep pace with the 1990. But it's more than that. As far as the bass response is concerned, overall presentation of the Ollo is cleaner, clearer, better separation, much less distortion, if any. The 1990 has this ability to take the bass, even though it's bass anemic. Let me rephrase. It's not bass anemic. It's just not overly emphasized in the bass. It's, in fact, there's a roll-off in the sub-bass and the bass region. Because of that nature and its weird spiky nature in the rest of the frequency range, it starts getting a little bit muffled. Now, the Ollo is more flat overall in response than the 1990. And so when you have a totally flat or very closely to totally flat headphone like the S4, things are going to be a little bit more cleaner, more clearer. It's not going to be, a huge spike in the 5K. There's not going to be a huge dip in, the 3,000 or the 2,500 region. There's not going to be a slight bump up in the 1,000. There's just no seesawing effect with the Ollo. It's just fairly neutral. Whereas with the 1990, it's just weird seesawing all over the place. I mean, if we go back to the frequency response for the 1990, it's up and down, and you might say, that's fairly flat for the Beyerdynamic. Yes, fairly flat, but there's just some sort of distortion that happens with the bass and the sub-bass where you start listening to it and it starts melding a little bit too much with the mids and a little bit too much with the other instruments. And it doesn't really provide all that detail. It certainly didn't provide the detail of the boing boing sound, right, in the drum solo. In comparison, you look at the Ollo audio. Yes, there are dips. Yes, there's, it's not linear. It's not absolutely flat. I understand that. But there's not huge ups and downs. It's more smooth presentation than it is with Beyerdynamic's headphone. Overall, what do I think? I really cannot, even if you say that the Ollo is not better than the 1990, I will never believe that this European company could possibly, all right, so let me rephrase, because Beyerdynamic is European, they're made in Germany. I can't believe this small company could ever compete with Beyerdynamic. Well, they can, and so far, with our first test with the Ollo, it does. And I would say that if you're of that opinion, then at least walk away with this, that the Ollo S4 is at least as good as the 1990. Think about that for a minute. If it is at least as good, why would you buy the Beyerdynamic for bass? Okay, we're just talking about bass. Why would you buy the Beyerdynamic for bass for double the price? I don't see any reason to do that, especially when Beyerdynamic's warranty is ridiculous. We've already talked about that in a BS review. So you've got a headphone from Ollo, which is about $300. You can pay in installment plans, I think, through PayPal, versus Beyerdynamic, which charge $600 for their headphones, and it has trebly spikes issues and some little bit of distortion issues. How do you justify the double the cost in that circumstance? I can't, and I can't imagine I would ever tell somebody else that they should definitely justify it. When you have another pair of headphones like the S4, which can at least perform the same as the Beyerdynamic. That's just my opinion. I hope that this is a bit of some help. If you have been interested in buying the 1990, it's not endgame. It's not the most amazing headphone. It certainly isn't that. But if you're looking for that type of signature, then, Ollo has something very similar for half the price. And in my opinion, is probably better than the Beyerdynamic overall, as far as the bass test goes. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you are a regular viewer of my channel and you enjoy what I do, then I would ask that maybe you will consider donating a couple of bucks to me per month. Even just $2 a month every month would help me save up money so I can buy new products and review them and thoroughly review them for you. Because that's how I do things here on this channel. I don't do a 10-minute video, obviously, and move on and never come back. My goal is to provide thorough review so that you can make a logical decision about what you want to buy. If you have any requests for me about reviewing products that I currently own, then please check out the review request form in the description below. Fill that out and I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for following me on Spotify on my playlist. Thank you so much for subscribing. We're at 499 subscribers, one away from 500. So let's get over that 500 mark, and so we can celebrate it together. I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon.